Welcome to NASCAR on NBC. Steve Letarte here alongside Jeff Burton. All right, Jeff, we've been looking at photo finishes for 65 years, since the 1959 Daytona 500 all the way to last night in Kansas. What do you make of an amazing finish between Buescher and Larson?
It was amazing. Really, all four cars right there going at it. You know, Truex trying to come back from the bad pit stop, and just everybody getting everything they had. And, you know, what a heartbreaker for Chris Buescher. I mean, look at this. I mean, how do you get any closer than this? And you know, when you get beaten like that, Steve, it hurts. But when you win like that, you know, that move that Larson made, that is that's what you dream of as a race car driver, coming to the checkered, making something happen. That is dream stuff. And heartbreak for one, and just a ton of happiness for another.
Well, a lot happened on the restart, but I want to get into the facts of the finish first to clear up a lot of misinformation that's out there. There's a start-finish line, there's loops, there's transponders, there are all of those things, but this race is raced to the start-finish line, which is determined by a camera, no different than the Kentucky Derby. NASCAR uses a basic slow-motion camera on the inside of the racetrack. We're actually looking at the broadcast version right here, and it's clear on the broadcast version. NASCAR posted the still image, which I thought was a wise thing to do. Why hide from it? They have the information. We saw it Saturday in the Kentucky Derby live on NBC, and we saw it again in the NASCAR race. So clearly Larson was the winner, and I actually appreciated the timing. I can't imagine what happened in the tower, but it happened what I thought was in a reasonable amount of time for something that was split by basically 1,000th of a second.
Yeah, I thought so, Steve, as well. You know, it's a lot of conversation about the start-finish line, that it's not painted exactly straight, and that's a fair point. That start-finish line does need to be cleaned up, but there is let's call it a digital line that gets put across the racetrack that really clearly showed who the winner was. I mean, it clearly showed by an inch showed who the winner was. Certainly the line needs to be cleaned up, but the winner wasn't determined by a line that's painted crooked on the racetrack.
So that was the finish, but let's talk about how we got there. And a lot happened, but let's focus on really the overtime restart. We had a mixed bag of 2 and 4 tires. Denny Hamlin, Chris Buescher on the front row right away. A less than ideal restart for Denny Hamlin. Kyle Larson on the gas 3 wide. At this point, Hamlin is done.
Yeah, he is done. There's just no recovering from being put in the middle, losing momentum. If you go to the middle with momentum, sometimes it works. But when you have negative momentum, you're in trouble. Larson just did a great job. Denny didn't execute that start like he needed to, and it worked out perfectly for Buescher. When Larson made that move, Buescher had the preferred lane. He was able to use momentum, and now it's trying to keep Kyle Larson behind you. And this is where I think Chris Buescher is probably lost some sleep, just some decisions that he had to make. He's guessing right now, where is my car better? Where is my car the fastest? Where is Larson's the fastest? Right there, when Larson ran the top and Chris ran the bottom, he has to be saying to himself, I can't give him the top. He gave him a lane. Larson takes it. They both lose momentum right here. And now the back row is coming with a full head of steam. So, you know, these decisions are made in just a millisecond. And I'm sure that Chris is second guessing himself, just the line he took into 3.
That's a great breakdown of the front 2. But if we can watch that again, I want to break down the 4 tires that could have, the 4 tires that might have had. And that's the 19 of Truex. 5th car on the outside going by the line right there. 5th car. The man started 10th. You see him take a high shot into turn 3. And while we're all focused on the front, watch that 19 car against the wall. 4 wide. He's going to disappear out of frame when he comes back into frame. There he is. 5th in line. I think this is the corner he might wish he could do over again. I think he had to go to the bottom. The car either doesn't turn like he wants. He cannot get clear of the 11 and 9. I believe if Truex clears Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott getting into 1 right here where he has racetrack to use, I think the 19 wins this race or has a good shot at it. Now, the 11 does what he needs to do. The 19 doesn't have kind of the clear until all the way late off the corner. You see the slide. It was a great run and fun to watch between the 19 and the 9, but it's the 4 tires that started all the way back in 10th that I think really did have a shot, Jeff.
Well, and I think even backing up further, you know, I think he potentially wins the race if that last caution doesn't come out. I mean, he is flying, running Denny Hamlin down, and then they come down pit road, and I was at the track, and I immediately text you, and I said that is not what he wanted to see is now going to be on his pit crew. And I happened to be standing. I had moved and was standing at the end of pit lane. And I'm like, uh-oh. I mean, how are you going to recover? And so, that caution coming out, 4 tires, losing all that track position, it's game over unless something magic happens. He almost made it happen, but we talk about second guessing ourselves because that's what we do as competitors. That team is second guessing themselves today. They had at the end of that race, I think they had the fastest car, but they found a way not to win. And that's, for Truex and the whole team, that's very frustrating. But you have to remember, you did have a fast car. You did do the things you needed to do. You just didn't execute, and those things just need to be cleaned up.
So I want to get to Chris Buescher and the Fords here in a second, but let's start with the winner. Let's start with Kyle Larson in the magical month of May he has ahead. Kyle Larson has now won at Kansas. He's feeling great about what he has going on, him and Cliff Daniels and all of Hendrick Motorsports. And I think that's something to point out here. It's not just Kyle Larson running the double when he heads to Indianapolis for the month of May. It's Rick Hendrick as well. He's listed as co-owner on this car. I think that matters because I think this is perhaps the biggest team effort we have seen from NASCAR up to Indianapolis. Not that they'll be making that car run any faster, but it's going to really help Kyle Larson with all the distractions and scheduling of where he needs to be, whether it's NASCAR or Indianapolis. So shake your crystal ball, Jeff. What are we going to see out of Kyle Larson when he heads to the Brickyard?
So I think, look, he's going to be fast, assuming the car he's sitting in is fast. He's going to be fast. He has the biggest test that he's going to have is post-qualifying. When they get into race trim and he starts dealing with all of the things that you have to deal with an Indy car, with air issues, aero issues, racing with a complete loss of downforce, track changing throughout the day. These are things that he has not experienced yet. And I think that's the biggest obstacle. The things that when as a fan you look at and you don't recognize the nuances of finding a tenth of a second, 0.2 of a second, not losing a ton of speed. When is the right time to make the pass? When if you try to make the pass, it's not going to work and you're going to lose momentum and 3 or 4 are going to get by you. Those are the things that he doesn't know. And until you get in the Indy 500 and you experience it, there's really no way to know it. And we hear drivers talk about it all the time. I think that's the biggest challenge for him. I don't think it's speed. I don't think it's prep level. It's just the lack of experience. But I will say this. When you win a race the way that he just won a race, that stays with you, Steve. I've been fortunate enough to win a few races on the last lap. And, man, that is it is just so confident building. Like you pulled it off at the right time and you made this incredible move that made it work. And that just proves again your talent and your ability. And I think Larson, as mild-mannered as he is an exceptionally confident race car driver. And when you give him results like this, that makes him even more confident and that makes him even more dangerous.
Well, for every driver who wins, someone has to lose. You mentioned Chris Buescher, but let's go a little bit bigger. Let's talk about the Blue Oval and Ford Motor Company. 12 races so far this season. They have finished second 6 times. And are you ready for these facts, Jeff? 1 1,000ths, Chris Buescher to Kyle Larson. 3 1,000ths, Ryan Blaney to Daniel Suarez. Brad Keselowski, a couple tenths to Tyler Reddick. Joe Logano, less than 0.3 of a second to Denny Hamlin at Richmond. That's 4 seconds by basically less than a half a second total. So if you're in the Ford camp, you and I have both done this in our careers. How do you spin these losses to positives? How do you say, I know being close is the most painful place to be, but it's better than being slow? What's the Ford camp saying on Monday to try to keep the momentum and turn these seconds into wins?
Well, look, I think if you look at what Ford has done the last 2 years, they're the defending champion, and they've done it by executing in the playoffs. And, we talk a lot about how important the regular season is, and it is important, but what's more important is getting hot in the playoffs. And that's what they've done. And so there's confidence in that. The key is you can't always rely on that, right? Though you and I both know, because we've done it, the more laps you lead, the more opportunities you have to run top 5, the more opportunities you have to be pitting late in the race with the lead, the more opportunities you have to win races. And so how is our speed? Or do we have enough cars going fast enough to win enough races? And that, to me, is the area that Ford is still lacking a little bit. You Buescher ran exceptionally well yesterday, but there wasn't a lot of Fords out there running well. He was up against a lot of competition that weren't in Ford. So, I think that's what Ford's probably looking at is like, how do we just get more speed? Because if we have more speed, that, that makes everybody faster. That creates more opportunities to win. But again, their formulas worked. You cannot deny that what Ford has done is they won the last 2 championships, and they've done it by getting hot at the right time. You can't stray too far away from whatever that strategy, whatever they've been executing. You can't stray too far away from that either.
Well, Kansas had a remarkable finish, but the task doesn't get any easier as the Cup Series heads to Darlington, South Carolina. The track too tough to tame. Up next for the drivers of the Cup Series.
Hi, I'm Parker Kligerman. For more access like this from Pit Road, be sure to click and subscribe to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube channel.